Greetings all, it is July and this is your DePIN market update. I'm going to update you on all of the projects I've covered to this point, as well as a plethora of new projects. And while I have been doing live streams most days, which you should check out if you haven't already, it's been since March since I've done a comprehensive DePIN update, so a little bit overdue. But I do have to say, the timing could not be any more perfect with Bitcoin hitting new all-time highs. It appears the DePIN sector is bouncing back. Now, I have to remind you, nothing in this video is financial advice. You should always do your own research, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All right, let's dig in. You know, Helium was an inspiration for a lot of us getting into a DePIN, myself included. They're making massive moves. For one, earlier this year, partnered with AT&T officially. You also have the fact that they are expanding in Mexico. Okay, so they are expecting to bring coverage to 2.3 million people in Mexico with this partnership. I think he believes it's movie star, but it's the country's second largest carrier service. They have a grant program that is launched. The big thing is matching supply and demand right now, because let's be real, at the beginning, they built out a lot of supply. We didn't have a lot of demand on the network. Well, now we are building supply where it's needed. This $50 million grant, the way it works is if you put a hotspot in a high traffic area, you can apply for the grant and get paid for building out the necessary coverage. They also just announced this today. They have these tools, sales tools. Check it out. So you want some flyers to go out there and talk to business owners and get coverage. They gave you marketing materials. That's pretty cool. But let's talk some metrics, guys. Let's talk some metrics. $2.66 million in monthly revenue now. 1.1 million daily active users and nearly 36 terabytes per day. And we are just getting started. Okay. You think about the amount of hotspots and the coverage that's being added right now. What's happening down in Mexico, y'all, absolutely crazy. And I think this guy, by the way, Dylan, he works with Masari. He's talking about how DC burns are up 86% since January for Helium, annualized revenue at $32 million. And yet, H&T is down 63% year to date. By the way, we have another halving coming up in August. But the Latin America expansion, the movement with AT&T, y'all, like, it is absolutely insane. You see this crazy, the price action is down. The network usage, though, the fundamentals are absolutely crushing it. So what do you think is going to happen to the price of H&T? Well, I think when the market recovers, we're going to see some big moves here, y'all. But man, Helium, one of the big leaders, one of the reasons why a lot of us are here today and why a lot of these other DePIN projects even exist, let's be real, and definitely due for a major bounce back. And as Flywheel says, Helium's on the cusp of greatness. I have to agree with you, man. I have to agree with you. Let's talk about Xnet. An announcement with AT&T. One of the things I'll say about Xnet is that, early on, I think their tokenomics were awful, but they changed them. They updated them. Okay. They also got some investment earlier this year. Okay. So that's a good sign. And if you look at the, token price right now, it's 2.7 million market cap, fully diluted valuation at 29 million. That's not bad. If Xnet takes off, you could definitely do some multiples from here. And that's why I bring it up. And they are playing in that space. And I don't think that there's just one player. I don't think it's just going to be Helium. I think there's going to be other players that can exist and can do well. The telecom industry is massive. So, I don't generally cover this project, but I have to say, like, they are doing things. And I want to cover it because there's a lot of different players in this space. Another one's World Mobile. A lot of people have been commenting. They're like, how come you don't cover World Mobile? All right, I'll cover it. They're doing a similar thing. They're doing a lot of coverage globally. I will say they started off on Cardano. They've since shifted. So this happened earlier this year. They moved from Cardano over to a layer 3 on Base Network. Base is a layer 2 on top of Ethereum. There were some, they were mentioned in this article here. talking about how they are offering a blockchain solution to bring connectivity around the world. And they had a post here I saw a while back that they were working in conjunction with Starlink to bring connectivity to areas that had been destroyed by hurricane affected communities. So pretty cool stuff. And I think they are looking to really hit some of the emerging markets around the world to bring connectivity to them. We look at the World Mobile Token. Their market cap 106 million, 288 million fully diluted valuation. Okay. So a lot of people, they have a big community. A lot of people are really, really big fans of this project. So another player in this space, and I think they're worth covering. Karrier One, guys. This is my dark horse. I've been doing a lot of research on this project. I've talked to some people that know this sector of DePIN much better than I do. And this is the one that a lot of people are really, really bullish on. And I have to say, I'm a really big fan of Karrier One. They're doing similar things to some of the other projects. They are also partnering with AT&T. AT&T is like, you know what? We love DePIN, apparently. The other thing is that they're built on SWI. I always thought it was SUI, but I guess it's SWI. And that is a blockchain people should not be sleeping on, guys. I think that SWI is could do quite well. There's a lot of people saying it could be the next Solana. I don't know about all that, but maybe. But I do like Karrier One. Apparently, their team is dialed in. And I don't think the K1 token is launched yet. Sounds like maybe next month, according to my source. We'll see. But really, really big fan of Karrier One. Let's talk about Dynex. I haven't talked about Dynex in a while. This is, I believe, a very legitimate project. They're getting usage. I know somebody that was working there. They do have a real product. They've caught a lot of FUD. I think that's really suppressed their price. But you look at the amount of jobs they've completed, almost 1.5 million compute jobs. They do what's called neuromorphic computing, which is essentially a form of quantum computing. And you can see their jobs. They have a subscription model. So a lot of these entities will pay for subscription to access this. It allows, I'll give you some use cases. So let's say you're designing an airplane. You can run models way faster. You're developing drugs in the pharmaceutical industry. You can run models a lot faster. So for those sorts of use cases, this network's really valuable. And I know they are working with some notable customers. Their market cap is wildly low. And that to me is like really the risk reward at where it's at right now. It's not one of my really large holdings, but it's something I have a position in because I think from the market cap it's at, it could really do a lot of multiples potentially. They just updated their roadmap, so they've accomplished a lot. But it's good to see that they're updating things. They've received a lot of awards recently around the world for their technology. Quantum is on the rise. They're very active on their socials. So I think for me, we look at this, it's sitting at a $3.5 million market cap, guys. Like that's pretty crazy. If we look at the all-time, this thing was up at over $100 million market cap. That's all-time high. I mean, that's roughly a 30x from where we are right now. So I'm not saying we're going to get there, but when you see a project like this that has a real product that's getting real usage, $3.5 million is just crazy to me. And I do think that a lot of the FUD is what beat down that price. So for me, yes, I do have a position in this project to see where it goes. And I do have a video on this one as well. If you want to learn more about it, 5.5 minutes. So easy watch. Silencio. They are measuring noise pollution data. Free to download the app. And essentially, when you're out in public, you can just measure the noise pollution around your area. You earn tokens for doing so. So, maybe you don't have cash right now. A lot of people got freaking wrecked earlier this year when the market dropped out. This is one you don't have to spend money. You can participate and earn tokens today. By the way, looking at some of their metrics, 38.7 billion data points so far. They have 1.1 million people that downloaded and are using the app to collect data. covering 180 countries. Ooh, let's look at the data map. I haven't looked at this map yet, so this is my first time. Wow. So they've collected data points pretty much freaking all over Europe, all the way down in Africa. We got India's like completely covered. Wow. So yeah, they've done a really good job of collecting data. Now you might say, who cares? Well, there's a lot more attention being paid to noise pollution and its impact on your health. And this is wild, man. They've shown that noise pollution not only drives hearing loss, tinnitus, and hypersensitivity to sound, but can cause cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, sleep disturbances. The list goes on and on. They're also investigating links to dementia potentially. And there's a big market here. It was $1.62 billion in 2024, expected to grow to $2.66 billion by 2034. So we're seeing growth in this. Europe's been on top of this for a while, but I think you're going to see more and more where, whether it's real estate, a lot of different markets, I think you're going to be really interested in this noise pollution data. And obviously, as we start to see more studies done on its links to health issues, obviously, I think that's going to be pushed more into the forefront. If we look at Silencio, where it's at today, guys, 3.38 million market cap. Come on. Think about the amount of data they're collecting. Like that's crazy. Fully diluted valuation, just under 20 million. These are the types of things I'm looking for, like in bear markets. You see something under 10 million that has like that type of use case. Those are the ones that can do crazy multiples. Those are the ones that I'm interested in investing in. This is pretty wild, though. 3.39 million. Yeah, big Silencio fan. Streamr has been around for a long time, guys. I believe they have been around over 7 years. It's a peer-to-peer data streaming network. So I use this example because this is basically how they work with DIMO. As opposed to, let's say that you plugged a DIMO unit in your car, as opposed to sending that to a centralized server like AWS and like Texas, and then they resend that data out to every other vehicle or whoever else the end user would need to be for that data. They push the data through the peer-to-peer network. So you'd send it to 4 other cars that are connected to the network. They would each send it to 4 other cars that are connected to the network. So it kind of is like spiderweb effect. For one, you don't have to rely on any centralized entities. And there's a lot of benefits to being fully decentralized. But all of the data is also fully encrypted. It's end-to-end encryption. So even though you're sending it through these vehicles, it'd look very jumbled. They wouldn't be able to make any sense of the data. It's they have keys that the end user has to decrypt that data. And again, it goes through the different peers in the network. They also just launched Streamr TV that's built on top of the network. So you can actually broadcast from here. I tested that out yesterday a little bit. So I stream from StreamYard, and I'm talking to them about getting an integration going so I can also stream to Streamr TV. But if there's any indication that this is seeing some positive trajectory, you can see here. I mean, they've been up quite a bit over the last week, up 20% roughly. This is when Streamr TV went live. We saw a massive pump here. So again, looking at all-time price action, this thing got up to $221 million market cap at its all-time high. It's currently sitting at $17 million. So I don't know, 12 or 13x, I would imagine. Just off the top of my head, some back in the napkin math there. So another project getting massive usage just launched a brand new tool. They waited a number of years for their mainnet launch till they had like a fully baked solution, and they do have a solution that really is enterprise grade. So Web2 companies can come in here and start using this. I'm a really big fan of Streamr. Their team is very solid as well. So this is another one of my holdings. And I think that from where we are, especially now, I do believe that there is plenty of upside in this project and with the amount of building that they're doing. WeatherXM. There's a lot of weather networks out there in DePIN. I think out of all of them, WeatherXM is the one that I have my bets on. I have stations deployed myself. They have a legit team. They've been around for a while. They're established. If you look at the map here, they have very solid coverage. Some of the other weather projects, I'm not going to call them out by name, but I think some of them are more interested in selling hardware than actually driving revenue. I think that WeatherXM is positioning itself to really be the leader in this space and DePIN when it comes to weather deployments. But as you can see, they have really good coverage around the world. They're also looking to do something similar to what like Dabba, who I covered the other day, and Helium is doing with their grant program with targeted rollouts. So same deal, like they are allowing people to invest, and they are then getting coverage in areas where it's needed, in particular, emerging markets. And this is something that, doing my research, because I did do a deep dive on this project, the need for weather data in emerging markets is massive. There's a very large percentage of our agriculture globally happens in emerging markets. The problem is they don't have weather data. When you look at the US, for example, we have a lot of government-funded weather data collection and weather data analysis. Our 7-day forecast is as good as the 1-day forecast in a lot of these emerging countries. So what the big problem around that, obviously, if you're a farmer, yeah, it helps to know what the weather forecast is, but it's really around insurance, crop insurance specifically. A lot of these areas, they can't get crop insurance because the insurance companies don't know how to properly assess the cost of insurance and the premiums. And as we've seen elevated weather events around the world, a lot of these farmers, especially medium to small size farmers, can get their crops wiped out and they're essentially screwed. So, they're solving a real world problem here. And there's a major market for it, particularly, also like hyper local weather data. The stuff we're going to start seeing with weather forecasts can be pretty wild. Now, if you want to participate, they have obviously the targeted rollouts that they're starting, so you can just invest and they'll get those set up for you. Dabba, actually, they have a partnership with as well. So you can get access, exposure to both WeatherXM and Dabba. They're in India, but you can also deploy yourself. I have a bunch of these H2s. They are super easy to set up. Stick a battery in there, get it synced up. You don't have to run wires up to the rooftop, any of that. Runs off the Helium network. Pretty sweet setup. They've got the Wi-Fi. They've also got the 4G options. But me personally, I've deployed all H2s. Been a really good experience for me. If you look at the price right now, $12.77 million market cap, fully diluted at just over 21 million, y'all. One thing to note about this project is that the max supply is a lot less. Most DePIN projects have $1 billion or more. They only have 100 million. So that's why I always look at market cap. But I think that WeatherXM could do quite well in the future. And again, I do have a deep dive on this project. So if you want to learn more about it, I really get into all the details, in this. It's about 12-minute video. So highly recommend checking that out. I'm going to be interviewing their team probably in the next couple of weeks as well. So big fan of what WeatherXM is doing. People have different views on privacy networks, but they have a really big community. And there's a lot of people that are really bullish on this project. I know people have different takes on privacy networks, but if we look at what they've done, they did get up to $2.10 not that long ago, earlier this year, sitting at just under a $40 million market cap. I am looking to get some hardware from them, so I will do a product review on that and let you know. But that's a project that a lot of people, their community is strong. Look at the community sentiment right now, 95%. So very solid. This is one that I think could absolutely bounce back and do quite well. So that's why, again, I bring this one up. Dabba Network, they're bringing Wi-Fi to India. 1.4 billion people in the Indian population, 70% of which are under the age of 35. Very young population. Very different than most of the demographics of other countries today. What's pretty wild, though, is only 50%, roughly 50 to 60%, have access to internet connectivity. The vast majority of those people are using cellular networks. So they kind of surpassed Wi-Fi infrastructure altogether and just moved straight to using cellular plans. The big problem now is that the telecoms are having trouble keeping up with the demand. They're finding that in India, the growth in bandwidth usage is expanding faster than anywhere else in the world. And the Wi-Fi infrastructure only covers about 5% of the population. So Dabba is set out to fix that problem. Now, when you look at India, really there's internet coming in from the ocean into two different areas on both sides of the country. And to this point, the Indian government has really run the show as far as trying to get broadband infrastructure across the country. They've been working on this for the better part of like 30 years. They've done a really good job of getting internet infrastructure built underneath the highways and the railroads in pretty much the edge of the towns and cities, but the last mile has been where the big problem is. It's very tedious and very costly to bury cables and bring them to different buildings and different infrastructure within these towns and cities. And that's kind of where things have gotten held up and where the bottleneck has been. And that's where Dabba is essentially, flipping the script here. They're working with these what are called LCOs or local cable operators in India. For let's say a town of 200 or 300 people, there's a person and they're called a local cable operator they started these smaller businesses for their town, and they have built it around setting up satellite TV for the 200-300 people in their local community, and it was a really good business plan for a while. But the problem has been that just like most areas of the world, people are looking to cut the cord, cut the cable, and move to streaming services. So they're actually leveraging these partnerships with these LCOs to help them shift their business model to now building out Wi-Fi infrastructure. They also have the backing of the Indian government. They help the Indian government write up their telecom policy. So they have the backing from the government, which is obviously a huge win as well. So I think Haram, who's their CEO, frames it pretty well here. There's 150,000 of these LCOs, these local cable operators that need to shift their business model. There's roughly 750 million underserved users that don't have access to Wi-Fi or broadband. And there's extreme cost sensitivity. If you look at the average income of people in India, it's quite low. So using the DePIN model, essentially, you can invest in the infrastructure. This is a model I think we're going to see more and more of where they manage the install for you. WeatherXM is doing a similar scenario right now, where they are allowing you to invest in the weather stations. They're getting deployed in the countries where it's needed. This is really going to be huge in matching supply and demand. So this is a big deal. Now, if you look at Dabba, they've sold a total of 13,000 hotspots. They've now installed 5,187 of those. So this number is ticking up. I've been keeping a close eye on it. They've already had over 12,000 terabytes of data over the network. So they're only installing these where they're getting usage. It's also worth noting that they just brought on 8 more LCOs and they're expanding now. So they kind of at the beginning brought on a few LCOs that they felt really comfortable with to start getting these hotspots deployed. Now they are bringing on more LCOs so they can speed up the installation process. So pretty cool stuff. Obviously, getting usage, driving revenue. So pretty cool stuff. I'm a big fan of Dabba. You can get their hotspots. They have several different programs going right now. They actually have a combination with WeatherXM, so you can have a Dabba hotspot installed. WeatherXM stations will also be installed there. I'm not going to talk about WeatherXM today, but it will be a project I cover in the next couple of days because they're also doing some pretty cool stuff as well. This is another one that I've done a deep dive on, and I've interviewed their CEO. So if you want to learn more about Dabba Network, check it out. But I do think that this project has some serious potential. And when you look at like what Helium's done, for example, and Helium has been successful. They caught a lot of flack for a while there, but they're starting to get a lot of daily usage, and they're expanding pretty quickly. But the difference here is that I think Dabba is managing the install for you. Now, some people don't like that. It's not going to be for everyone. Some people don't trust that they're going to actually go and install these things. Okay. I mean, that's fine. There's plenty of projects for you if you want to be a deployer yourself. But for me, and I think a lot of people are in this camp, I'm freaking busy. Like, I've done the Helium thing. I got 70 rooftop installs out there. Then you have to like manage them, keep them up and running. People move, you have to get them removed from people's rooftops. Like, that's a lot of headache, man. So I know some people love it. For me, I've got too many irons in the fire at this point. I like the concept of being able to invest in the infrastructure, have it installed and managed for me, and not have the headache of having to maintain. So that's just me personally. But I think there's going to be a huge subset of people. I think we're going to see this, especially in emerging countries. It's going to be this model now where you can very easily raise capital from all over the world to build an infrastructure like this. So I'm a big fan of the project myself. They also have X Spaces every Wednesday that you can hop on. I normally am on those as well. So worth tuning into those. But yeah, go ahead and follow them. And again, I think all the projects I've covered so far, I've interviewed their founder or CEO. So give those a watch if you want to learn more about these projects. We get into all the nitty-gritty details straight from the co-founder or CEO's mouth themselves. DeEEP Network, guys. There are decentralized node networks out there, but DeEEP is differentiated. I'm going to talk about why here, but just kind of the overall basis here. When you look at the other options that are available, you have your Amazon Web Services, you have your centralized entities for cloud services. Well, I think we've seen enough instances in recent history where you see outages, you see data leaks, incredibly costly, not to mention, you have generally really inflexible contract terms. They charge an arm and a leg. There's a lot of problems with centralization. Well, DeEEP is fixing that with their node. And I would highly recommend taking a look at their hardware. Right now, they've sold out all their batches. And you can join the wait list for when the next batch opens. But essentially, it's plug and play, guys. Super easy to set up. Incredibly easy to set up, actually. When they say plug and play, it's plug and play, guys. Like, there are some workloads where you have to, open some ports if you want to participate in hosting some of the workloads and getting full rewards. But guys, it is about as easy to set up as it gets. Now, here's an example. Now, this is not a guarantee for what your income would be off of this, but you would basically plug in this device in a decentralized manner. They're hosting these different workloads. So the left is some example workloads. And then you get roughly 50% of the revenue that's generated. You also earn DeEEP tokens for participating. So a pretty cool model. Now, one of the questions I always have about these is, where's the demand going to come from? Because I think you see a lot of these projects where you have really smart people that are building out the network, but there's no demand and no revenue coming in. And that's one of the big problems I've always had with these networks. And there's plenty of examples there. I'm not going to call any of them out by name right now, but that is one of the things I really like about this project, because this group already had a company called NerdNode. And they already had a ton of workloads on the network. So what they had done is they set up a centralized service, brought a bunch of revenue in, brought a bunch of workloads on, and now they've created this decentralized network to start moving those workloads over to. And this is a really good example of a project that already has revenue before the token launch. I love it. I think we're going to see more projects do this. And I think that's a winning scenario, because it buys you more time. These projects that are launching tokens years before they have any revenue, you have a market downturn. It makes it really difficult for them to keep getting investment and keep things running. In this case, they're already going to be showing revenue. And looking at their team, Ben and Chris, these guys, this team, by the way, is phenomenal. But Ben and Chris, they worked in the IoT world. In fact, they had a contract with McDonald's where I believe they had 6 IoT devices in every McDonald's. Okay, so they know the business side of things. They know how to bring in revenue. That is so critically important. Then you have, Nate Harper, who, by the way, I did an interview with. Check it out. The co-founder, one of the co-founders of DeEEP Network. So we get into all the nitty-gritty details that you need to know. A couple other things worth mentioning, guys. They didn't have to decentralize this network. They were making plenty of money with NerdNode, but they believe in decentralization and moving the market forward in a decentralized way. I think in the long term, it's going to be a big win for them. But keep in mind, they're now splitting the revenue 50-50 by doing this. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be a much better move. The other thing I want to point out is, compared to a lot of other projects that will just continue selling hardware, guys, they're only expanding the network to make sure they're matching supply and demand. So they don't want to sell more hardware than they have demand for, and that is why they're doing these batches. I think that says a lot about the team, because this is you're seeing this with a lot of DePIN projects where they're just going to keep selling hardware where there's no clear path to revenue, and that is not a sustainable business model. And that's one of the biggest red flags, in my opinion, in DePIN right now to look out for, is projects that are really focused on selling hardware, not focused enough on actually driving revenue. And obviously, I think it's one thing to say it. It's one thing to put your money where your mouth is, and they're doing it. They could be selling a lot more hardware, and they are certainly throttling the speed of growth on the supply side to match the demand side. I really like what they're doing here. So check it out, guys. DeEEP Network. Go ahead and sign up for the wait list. But highly recommend taking a look at this project. We don't know when the network or the TGE is going to be. I think, if I were to guess, Q3. As Flux is looking to create a fully decentralized option for particular, I mean, not just Web3, but Web2 companies too. And they are working with a good amount of Web2 companies. But, think about what like DeEEP Network's doing. I covered them a couple of days ago. Similar concept, but they've been around a long time, man. Flux has been around like years at this point. They also have a very solid team. I highly recommend following Daniel Keller. He joins a lot of spaces and stuff too. They have a space every Thursday. But again, their whole thing is like, these projects should be fully decentralized. And that's kind of like the dirty little secret in DePIN, is a lot of these projects are still using AWS, for their clouds, for cloud storage, for cloud compute. They can use Flux and be fully decentralized. And I do like Flux a lot. Same with like DeEEP Network, again, like I covered, but they are tried and true. They've been around for multiple years. They're working with Web2 customers. If we look here at their price, $73 million market cap. So obviously down quite a bit. If we look at the 1 year here, when you start seeing prices down here, this is when I start getting really interested in adding to positions. They got all the way up to $2.77 back in 2022. And, like a lot of these projects that are at least still around in DePIN, their fundamentals have only gotten stronger since then. So another prime candidate for a major bounce back. I know there's probably some 375 AI fans in here, and I am a huge fan of 375 AI and what they're doing. So they're basically collecting data at the edge, and they're processing that data using NVIDIA chips. So for one, and I'm going to show you all the different hardware that they have and what they're doing exactly. But I have to say, their CEO, this guy, Harry Dewhurst, this dude is a very, very well accomplished individual. He is in his late 30s. He was on Forbes 30 under 30. If you look down here, he was the CEO for 2 years of Linksys. Let's go down here. Very young CEO, I might add, to be a CEO of a company of that nature. His first company that he co-founded, I think, sold for like somewhere in the range of like $380 million, something like that. Absolutely insane. The guy is very, very smart and knows how to execute, obviously. Now, one of the things in particular that's really attractive about this group is that they have a exclusive partnership with this company. Outfront Media has 50,000 billboards across the country. And what they're doing is they're collecting data. And this is a staggering fact, by the way. There's roughly, I think it's close to 80% of commerce is still done offline, right? So actually people going into like brick and mortar and shopping in that way. Now, we've done a really good job of collecting data on people's online shopping habits, but there's still a huge miss when it comes to collecting data for people actually doing physical shopping. And this is what they're trying to address in many ways. So one of their model, one of their hardware models is this the Edge 375 Edge. They've already deployed a lot of these across LA. They've also deployed them in some other major cities. They're expanding right now. The way this works, essentially, on these billboards, they're setting up 6 cameras. They've got NVIDIA chips right there, and they're able to process all this data at the edge. So pretty cool stuff. It allows them to basically look at all vehicles that are going past. They can see how many people are in vehicles. They can see license plates. They can detect all this in real time. And there's a huge need for this. I mean, public safety, obviously, like Amber Alerts, that sort of thing. But also, you look at hedge funds. Hedge funds are always looking to get more data and get an edge. This is a data set they haven't had before. They in the past, they bought satellite imagery to see like how many cars in a parking lot. But this type of data has not been something that's existed at a large scale that's really had all the edge processing done. So it's really valuable in real time. So massive project being built out here. Now this hardware comes at a price of $50,000. So obviously it's out of a lot of people's price range, but they are going to be offering the ability to actually buy parts of this equipment. So you could invest $1,000, let's say, and you get basically 2% ownership in that hardware at the edge. They're making it a lot easier for people to invest, but they're also launching a version that's going to help them fill in the gaps at the edge. So you have it's called the 375 Street. So it's going to come at a price tag. Don't quote me on this, but I want to say probably around $1,200. Has 2 cameras, also has processing at the edge. But this is for people that, instead of having it deployed for you, maybe you want to deploy it on your own. Maybe you live in an area that has decent traffic, but it doesn't make sense to put a $50,000 unit. Well, in this case, you can set up your own cameras and participate that way and earn tokens. So if you are really into getting your hands dirty and wanting to, deploy your own cameras, you can do so. I have to say, I think this is a really cool project. I think that when you consider the type of data they're gathering, there's going to be a lot of use cases for it and a lot of demand for it that I don't think people even are scratching the surface on yet. I think there's going to be a lot of really large future use cases. The other thing I'll say, though, is that you can actually participate for free today using their 375 Go app. They have tremendous coverage already. But this is actually gathering data on network connectivity, network speeds, etc. And I will say, Harry, in a prior life, utilized and sold a lot of data that's very much in line with the data they're collecting here. And they have collected a lot of data using this products already. I forget where the map is for that, but they have people that have mapped hexes all over the world. I mean, it's pretty remarkable what they've been able to do. But I do think, they're doing things right in a lot of ways. They have really good leadership. They're collecting really valuable data, of course. But on the other end, they have ways to participate for everyone. They have a free app you can participate with. They have, if you are the type of person that wants to deploy the hardware yourself, they have that option coming. And then if you're hands off, well, you can invest in their edge and you can do fractional ownership. So I think really smart the way they're going about it. I also have an interview with their CEO I posted a couple weeks ago. Highly recommend checking that out. In fact, I'll show you what some of this looks like. Look at this stuff. They're getting every vehicle. They have IDs for every vehicle. You can see how many passengers are in each vehicle. Pretty remarkable stuff. And I do believe that project has a lot of legs. They are expecting to have their token launch in Q3. So certainly want to keep an eye out for, but you can download the app today and start participating in earning tokens before the launch. So it's a little spooky. It is a little bit Big Brother, isn't it? But hey, somebody's going to do it. There's no doubt about it. Somebody's going to end up doing it. So why not be an early investor in a project that is going to capture that data set? I mean, I think I think that project's going to do really well. And again, I have the utmost confidence in their leadership. The team is so important right now, especially when market conditions are poor like it is right now. You really, really have to have a team that can execute. And you want a team that's committed. So really, really important stuff there, guys. Conduit Network's another one I haven't covered before, but I have to say, their founder here, Brandon Baker. This guy is super sharp, man. Y'all should definitely follow him, follow what Conduit's doing. This project, I think, could be massive. Excuse me, be massive. So they have several different services. They've got Conduit GPU, so basically decentralized powering of AI at compute at the edge. You've got the Conduit Core. Sorry, yeah, the Conduit server, which I is more so basically like a compute distributed cloud compute network, and then domain specific solutions, but basically decentralizing the future of the internet. But man, talk about a super sharp team and a guy that has some really good takes, and they absolutely get it. They understand building out an actual business, and I think that we're going to see a big shift here, especially in DePIN. We actually discussed this on a space earlier today, how we need to get away from the hype cycle, mining tokens to sell them. This 4-year market cycle. There's no longevity there, and that's you can't build a business when you're dealing with a hype cycle and just speculative buying. He's looking at valuing these DePIN projects based on revenue the way that traditional markets would. And I think he's right. I think it's really important for us to make this shift because we need to be able to bring in new investment. And I think the DGen investors, they have a very short-term mindset. And I think that Conduit, they get it. I think that they're going to be a very, very successful project. So definitely give them a follow as well. Here it's just Conduit_network. Another project is Tashi. This guy too, follow Ken Anderson. He has some really good takes. This guy's really, really sharp too. I've been on some spaces with both him and Brandon, and man, talk about some alpha when you're on those spaces. But they're basically getting into powering a lot of gaming protocols, and they talk about how Roblox spends $400 million a year just to keep their game running. So they're getting into the gaming space. Tashi, unleashing DePIN, Tyler, he joins a lot of my spaces on Tuesday. This is a project that he speaks so highly about. So this is a project I'm going to cover more in depth, but one that should absolutely be on your radar. Make sure to give them a follow. Give Ken a follow too. This guy, again, really, really smart. When he's in spaces, I recommend jumping in there because he has a lot of really good things to say. And this is another project I think is going to do really well. Wingbits is a really solid project, guys. So it used to be that flights were tracked strictly by radar, and you kind of have this blip on the system. You didn't have a whole lot of details around where flights were. Now they have something called ADS-B. It's called Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. So let me show you how this works essentially. But you have this digital snapshot of a plane now where it sends out a signal using its onboard tools. So you have precise location data, you have the velocity, aircraft ID, just a ton more data than just radar. But the problem is you have to have something that collects that data at the ground. And that is what Wingbits is building out. Essentially, you have these antennas you can set up on your roof, and you can capture this data from the airplanes. And what they're doing is they're getting these things all over the world deployed. So if you look at the map here, you can see all the flights that are being tracked. It's pretty cool stuff. You can click on a specific aircraft. You can see what type of aircraft it is. So for people that are flight geeks, you could certainly have a lot of fun on here looking at different flights. If you live next to an airport, it'd be kind of fun to watch the flight come in and see what flight is coming. Yeah, a ton of airplanes. And it's not just the U.S., guys. It's all over the world. All over the world. So to this point, it's really interesting. The way that these flight tracking networks have worked is it's mostly hobbyists. You have these entities, these centralized entities that make a ton of revenue. And then they basically have flight enthusiasts all over the world. They send equipment to that set up these devices. They don't get paid anything. They just get free access to the flight tracking software. And again, they're kind of like flight nerds. They like to watch it. They think it's fun. And, the centralized entity is getting all the revenue and all the real benefit as far as monetization goes. The problem with that is when you just have hobbyists running these different hotspots or these antennas, you have problems with uptime. They don't really have an incentive to optimize their setup and make sure they're getting good data. And what Wingbits is doing is essentially using a token incentive model. They're flipping the script here. They're getting people to deploy these all over the world. They get tokens, so they get ownership in the protocol, and they're incentivized to have an optimized setup and have better coverage and have better uptime, because the token incentive model is tied to the more value you bring to the network. So their goal is to get better data. And that is what they're well on track to do. Now, the other thing I'll say is that they launched a satellite into space. Let me pull this up real quick. So this was earlier this year. They actually launched a satellite. And the main reason is to fill in the gaps. Because you have to think, if we look at this map here, it's great if you have all these antennas collecting data here. But what about when their flights are over the ocean? It's hard to get really good data because these antennas can, they have pretty good coverage, but they can't span that far. So that's a big reason why they launched this satellite, is to kind of fill in the gaps, particularly in areas where you don't have good coverage from the ground level. So they're certainly making moves. And I will say one of the things that makes me really, really bullish on this project is that they teamed up with Geodnet. Geodnet, I'm not going to cover today. I will be covering it in the next couple of days, though. Obviously, one of my favorite projects. But Mike Horton, who is the CEO of Geodnet, is also partnered with Wingbits to where you can actually get a dual mining hotspot. So you can actually get both GeoD tokens and Wingbits tokens. Actually, the Wingbits network uses the Geodnet network to verify location data so you don't have spoofing. So pretty cool synergy there. But the other thing I'll say there is, Mike Horton has proven to be very effective with Geodnet. And it's arguably one of the, if not the most successful DePIN project right now. He has a vested interest in getting Wingbits to succeed. So having that type of lever and being able to rely on the expertise when needed from Mike Horton, I think is a really big win for this project. And that is the reason why I really like it. It's ROVR. Okay, they're using LiDAR technology. So essentially, it's a laser technology. Shoots out a laser. Once it hits, a building or something, it returns another laser, essentially to build out a 3D rendering around it. And this is going to be really, really important for robotics, for autonomous vehicles. And HD mapping is incredibly valuable. So we look at how much HD maps can cost, as much as $1,000 per kilometer. Needs frequent updates to keep up with changing road conditions. These high costs and maintenance requirements add significantly to operational expenses, highlighting the challenge of balancing detailed, accurate mapping with cost-effective strategies in a rapidly evolving field of autonomous driving. Autonomous driving being the key word there. If you look at Waymos use LiDAR. They also came out with this. They just heard from one of their data clients. Look at this, though. They said one of our data clients, they already have clients. They already have customers. That's massive. They haven't been around that long. But they said that ROVR's data quality rivals the Waymo open data set. In some ways, it's even better. Less noise, higher matching accuracy, richer scenes, global coverage. This is huge. We're going to see very quickly the power of DePIN with this project. And I think that ROVR can do quite well. And they're really attacking a much needed data set. Also, I will say this, the timing is perfect. LiDAR technology, you look just a few years ago, is incredibly costly. It's come down to the point where this project can even exist. So they couldn't have done this 3 years ago. I talked to Mike Horton, by the way. The next thing I'm going to talk about is their partnership with Geodnet. Mike Horton, the founder, he speaks very highly of this project. He also looked at the hardware in depth that ROVR has. He's like, it is a really, really high quality piece of hardware. I want to talk about that hardware actually. So you have the Tarantula X. This is actually connects to the Geodnet network and verifies location data. And then you have the light cone, and this is the LiDAR unit that you put on top of your car. They just opened up orders again on this. They also had a $2.6 million seed round of funding, co-led by Borderless and Geodnet. And I have to say, this is one of the biggest things for me is that partnership with Geodnet, because you have Mike Horton, who has proven that he knows how to run a project, and he has a vested interest in ROVR, and ROVR's using the Geodnet network. There's a lot of synergies there, and both of them are going to be really instrumental for robotics. But the fact that they have, and same thing, I talked about this with Wingbits the other day, but having that relationship with Mike Horton is massive. In fact, I think they're even like working in the same office space in certain regions of the world. So, man, I have to say, I really like what ROVR's doing. Now, the market cap right now, 1.386 million. Fully diluted valuation, it's worth noting, is 128 million. So not a lot are in circulation right now. So there will be dilution. So keep that in mind for sure. Let's talk about Geodnet, guys. Geodnet is my number one project in all of DePIN right now. Has been for some time. I cannot say enough good things about this project. They are working with RTK. So RTK stands for real-time kinematics. Essentially, when you connect to a GNSS system or global navigational satellite system, there are several of them around the world. GPS is the US version, for example. You need to connect to generally 4 or more satellites to triangulate your position. The problem is that you have basically margin of error. You have reflection off of different particles. You have reflections off of different surfaces and buildings. And generally, you can only get within a couple meters of accuracy on your location. Now, for driving your vehicle and just getting directions somewhere, it's not a big deal. But when you start looking at other use cases, let's say autonomous vehicles. Okay, let's say for drone surveys, farmers using autonomous farming equipment, you need to be a lot more precise than that. And that's what Geodnet's doing. With RTK, they are deploying stations all over the world, working in conjunction with the satellite systems to get within a couple centimeters of accuracy. And they are absolutely crushing it, guys. If we look at the map here, they have unbelievable coverage, over 18,600 miners around the world. We scroll out here. Look at the coverage they have around the world right now. All over the US, all over Europe, all over the world. I mean, look at, they even have massive coverage down in South America. You have coverage in Africa. You have coverage across India over there, all over Asia. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. Australia, pretty remarkable what they've been able to do. If we look at some metrics here, the amount of revenue continues to increase. They have a lot of tokens being burned. Monthly token burns have obviously been increasing as revenues increase, but also token prices come down with market conditions. More tokens are being burned. One thing I'll say about Geodnet is they make it very easy to see their token burns. If you go to the Polygon scan, you can see the number 12 wallet right here. If you look at holders, this dead wallet, that shows you very clearly how many tokens have been burned. Over 1.5% of the total supply is burned out of supply forever, will not be put back into circulation. That's pretty wild. And the revenue is continuing to build. They also had an $8 million investment round from Multicoin Capital earlier this year, bringing their total financing up to $15 million. Guys, leadership and the teams behind these projects make a big difference. Mike Horton, we joke around about it, but the things he touches in DePIN turn to gold. The guy sold his last business for like $50 million. He doesn't have to even be working. And he's like at every show, he's passionate about the project, incredibly committed to the project. And the guy is super smart. Cannot say enough good things about him. Now, if you want to get involved in the project, you can get a base station. They also have a dual miner that works in conjunction with the Wingbits network. They also have this GeoPulse that you can plug in your car and help validate and verify the network. They just you can earn GOD tokens through that. They just launched some new quests so that you can get more tokens. So a lot of different ways to get involved in the project. I also have several videos. I interviewed Mike Horton as well. I have a deep dive video on the project. And if we look at the token price, let's look at GOD. Still my number one holding in my portfolio, in my DePIN portfolio, that is. Not when you include Bitcoin. All right, so GOD token, 16.81. Obviously, we got up to 37 cents, $53 million market cap. Yo, this is this project, I think, is going to do huge things. And then you look at other projects they're collaborating with. ROVR, it's going to be big, I think. I think Wingbits has the opportunity to be big as well. But Geodnet is definitely my number one DePIN project. DIMO. How are you guys feeling about DIMO? Guys, I'm going to talk about how I think this can play out, why I still am a fan of DIMO, and, from a big picture, why I think the token can do quite well, but what the risks are in the short term to the token price. So let's break it all down. First off, 182,546 cars connected. So pretty solid there, pretty solid network that's been built out. The big problem for them, these are good metrics, the amount of cars connected. Another good metric is the amount of people building apps in the ecosystem. The big problem for them has been this right here, which is how many cars are connecting to the apps that are built. And that's been the big problem. So if you all remember, this has probably been a few weeks now. They announced they're going to be they're going to begin charging for subscriptions to be connected to the network. The main reason is that a lot of these devices that are out there have mobile connections, and it costs money. So they said they're going to start charging for subscriptions. Now, they had caught a lot of backlash from this, and this was what Rob came out and said, the CEO. We've heard you. There will be an update on lower cost subscriptions and other important news next week. I've been working directly with them. We'll see how this plays out. Now, I will say this. If they go with a full subscription model, I think they're going to lose a lot of vehicles that are connected to their network today. I don't necessarily think that's going to kill the project, though. And hear me out. I think for one, they'll get rid of a lot of people that were just trying to farm the token and sell it and push the token price down anyway, that weren't really helping the protocol. But on the other end of things, I think they can actually drive adoption from the types of contributors they want. Now, you see here, they are building apps. So here you can see they're like pushing commands to vehicles through the device, which is pretty cool. They have fleet tools being built out. So that's a massive industry for them. And I think more importantly, they've announced some really big partnerships recently. They have this partnership in Japan. They're going to bring a ton of new vehicles on there. Japan's connected vehicle market is going to hit $1 trillion by 2030. The timing appears strategic. Japan produces approximately 10% of the world's vehicles. I forget how many vehicles they expected to connect through this partnership. It's hundreds of thousands, though. This is a massive partnership. And again, this is going to shift the contributors from the DePIN-minded people that were just trying to mine tokens and didn't give a shit about what DIMO is actually doing to partners that are actually looking to leverage the tools. These partners don't care about the tokens. They're like, hey, we're going to use the apps that you're developing. Same thing with this Kaufman partnership. This is one of the largest dealers down in Latin America. So they're looking at expanding in a major way in these other countries. They had 1.7 million connected cars projected to be sold across Latin America. Kaufman's going to be deploying DIMO LTE devices for data collection and product development. So massive amount of cars that are going to be connected there. Also, they're selling the devices on Amazon. So hear me out. I think we need to look at the implications here. I think long term, they're getting a lot of new connected vehicles that are going to be using the network and the apps. That's going to drive revenue. For every app that each vehicle connects to, it's $1.25 per month in revenue generated for the protocol. Okay. So they're going to essentially flush out the people potentially that aren't using the protocol, and they're going to be replacing them with people that are and driving revenue. So that's key. And I think in the long term, I think because of the price of the token, I think could do quite well. Now, in the short term, it's going to depend on what they do with the subscription model. Now, if they introduce a model where if you connect your vehicle, and they're looking to now add an option where you can just automatically opt in to share your data, raise the amount of tokens you're earning. But if they can do that to replace the subscription cost where you don't have to pay, I think that's the smartest move. I don't know if that's what they're going to do. But again, long term, I think the fundamentals play out with the partnerships they have with listing on Amazon that I would look at as a buying opportunity of the token itself. And that's how I'm looking at this. If we look at the token price sitting at 5.2 cents, under $18 million market cap. I mean, if you do some math here with some of these partnerships they have, I wouldn't be surprised within the next 1 to 2 years they have over 1 million vehicles connected. Let's say each is connecting to 3 apps, which I don't think is unreasonable, especially if they add this auto opt-in feature. 3 seems like that would be pretty easy actually. Times $1.25, that would be $3.75 million in revenue a month generated by the protocol. On an annualized basis, that would be 45 million. I think that is very doable, actually. I think the upside is much greater than that. When you think about that, if they could get to, again, $45 million in annualized revenue, we're sitting at a market cap, guys, of 7.98 million. Start doing the math, okay? I think that we could see. I think we could see this project really have a major comeback. I think it'll catch a lot of people by surprise because people are more concerned with earning tokens, not looking at the business case behind it. That is why I remain bullish on DIMO. Now, I'll say this much, and I have a lot of videos, by the way, you should check out. I've interviewed their co-founders and done deep dives. I will say this though: if they introduce the subscription model, I don't know that I'd recommend building a fleet out with their hardware. But I still am interested in owning the token for those reasons that I stated. Hivemapper. Let's talk about Hivemapper. 33% of the world's roads mapped at this point. They are shipping the B, not just the B, the Wi-Fi version as well. There are some reports right now that people's earnings with the new model are not as good as the old model. And it is something that I know Ariel is looking into and addressing. But that is a problem that needs to be addressed. For people that have built out fleets of bees and are getting less earnings than the original model, that would be a reason, and I think a valid reason to be upset. Now, on the other side of things, though, they've announced a lot of partnerships: Lyft, Trimble, TomTom, NBC Universal. Here, I mean, on top of that, they said they have another Fortune 20 company they're going to be announcing. They've got a Fortune 50. This is all within the last 3 weeks. I will say they have been working. They've been getting customers. For all the hate that people have, name another DePIN project that has those types of customer announcements. I doubt you can. Let's talk about building out the demand side and the business side of things. Now, obviously, they're like, hey, where's the burn? Well, they did burn 808,000 tokens the other day. Now, I will say one of the things that I brought up, because I do host their AMAs now, is, hey, you need to have more transparency around token burns, around their announcements. People need to see that the token is being burned, because I am a firm believer if the revenue is not tied to the token utility in some way, shape, or form, the project's going to fail. Okay, so tokens are being burned. And it's just funny because 2 years ago people were like, oh, you don't have any customers, you're lying. And they started announcing customers. You're like, oh, well, those customers probably just did a trial a year ago, and now you can, your NDA's up and you can announce them. And it's like, oh, well, maybe you do have the customers, but where are the token burns? It's like, dude, come on, man. I think there's a lot of people that earn tokens early, sold them, and want the project to fail. Now, I'm not saying a Hivemapper is perfect, but I will say they are doing a much better job of customer announcements and driving demand than a lot of other DePIN projects. And I think a lot of the hate they get is frankly unwarranted. There is like criticism warranted, but I think it's a little bit over the top. I'll say that much. I think one of the big winners in the DePIN sector looking forward is going to be in the compute side of things and tokenizing GPU compute in particular, especially as we see the AI movement continue to expand. We see AI agents, eventually AGI. Exabits to me is like my favorite GPU project, and there's a lot of them out there. You have your renders, your Nosana, you have Akash Network, IONET, Aethir, you name it. To me, Exabits is the one that I'm most interested in having exposure to, and I'm going to explain why and how it actually gets you exposure to a lot of the other GPU projects at the same time. So what they're doing is quite different from a lot of the other GPU projects. Exabits is building out legitimate data centers all over the world. In some cases, thousands of high-end NVIDIA GPUs. You can see here across the US. They not only have them in North America, they have some in Europe. They have some in Asia as well. Their team is stacked. They brought a lot of people from the Web 2 space over that know how these GPU data centers work. And it's not an easy task. There's cooling systems. There's fine-tuning of the GPUs. You think about like what happened with DeepSeek, right? There's going to be all these advancements when it comes to compute. They have the team that knows how to pull it together, guys. And when you look at the other projects that are sourcing from them, you have Akash Network, you have Render, you have Aethir, okay? IONET should be on here. There's IONET right there. Because let's be real, right now, for AI startups, one of the biggest costs right now is GPU, resources. Their options are to go through your likes of AWS, your Google Clouds, very inflexible contract terms. A lot of those centralized entities are using the best resources internally. So it's a really big bottleneck and a really big problem for AI startups. Exabits is looking to change that by democratizing AI compute. It's also worth mentioning, like I said, that these other groups are sourcing from them. That's because they have these AI data centers. The other thing I'll say is that they have $12 million in annual reoccurring revenue already. In December, they raised another $15 million on $150 million valuation. Okay, Exabits is going to be a monster, in my opinion, in the space. The money's there. The backers are there. I think it's flying majorly under the radar. And their token launch is expected to happen in Q3. So one to definitely keep on your radar. And I think a lot of these GPU projects are going to do well. But to me, this one is differentiated from the rest. And because the other projects are sourcing from them, again, you get exposure to all those other projects by getting exposure to Exabits. So definitely my number one GPU project. Render is obviously, I think, the most well-known. Also has the largest market cap. This is the Airbnb for your GPU power. So if you have a GPU or a graphics card that's sitting idle, you can rent it out. And they kind of act as like this marketplace to, match up the people that have demand for GPU resources with the ones that have the GPU resources to rent out. So this could be a gamer. You're not using your computer all the time. So when it's would otherwise be sitting idle, you can monetize those compute resources. It could be a business that has a data center. Most businesses only use like 20% of their compute capacity of their data center. So for businesses, I think you're going to see this more and more. They're going to be able to monetize that extra compute that would otherwise, again, be sitting idle. And then on the other end, you have the consumers. It could be students. It could be startups. AI startups need GPU capacity. It's very expensive to go through centralized entities. Render is a big, it's massive. It's the most well-known GPU aggregator in the crypto space. It's also, again, I think it's like a $1.3 billion market cap. I just want to pull up their team here. You have Jules Urbach at the helm. he's known as like the godfather of rendering. You have Ari Emanuel, who's the CEO of Endeavor that owns the WWE. You have J.J. Abrams. He's directed Star Wars movies. The guy's very well known. Brandon Ike is the CEO of Brave Browser. Mike Winkleman is as Beeple, the NFT artist. You even have somebody from the World Economic Forum on here. So completely stacked team. They also, back in 2024, announced a partnership with Apple. So Render is massive, guys. And you look at where it's at right now. I mean, the market cap's still higher than the rest of these, so maybe a little bit more limited upside, but it's $3.20. You look at the all-time, this thing got up to over $12 a year and a half ago. We look at the market cap again. The market cap got up to 5.22 billion. So we're at 1.6, so call it 3.5x is where we were before, and they're getting a good amount of usage. I was even at the Sphere in Vegas for New Year's, and they powered that whole show with Render. So they actually use a crypto project to power the show. Is pretty remarkable stuff. So again, Render, I am a holder of Render. And I really like the project. And I think that from where we're at, especially right now, when the market rebounds, it is a prime candidate to have a nice recovery. The next one I want to talk about is Nosana. Another GPU network built on Solana. Another one. I mean, you look, they have only 295 hosts are available. So the rest are being used right now. So that's really good utilization. I think they're more targeting like the inferencing more than AI training. But guys, like, now that all these models are trained, the inferencing is going to be absolutely massive. And I think these networks are going to be really useful for that, because you can get lower cost compute. You don't really necessarily need, a data center with 1,000 GPUs to inference most models. If you look at the amount of completed deployments, over 1.7 million, 859 running right now, over 1.7 million deployment hours. So pretty crazy stuff, pretty consistent usage. And that's exactly what we want to see. The thing that you don't want to see is networks being built out that have no usage. And that's what we saw before. But now these are going from like a concept with potential, again, to actually seeing real usage. And they have a number of articles out there about this project too. But again, promise scalable and affordable AI. And that's the big thing. Affordability for some of these AI startups in particular. This one's sitting at 59 cents. This is my biggest win. I called this out. I put a video out at like 2 cents. It got up to, I think it was actually over $7. So Nosana is a great project and one that I am also a pretty large holder in. IONET, they caught a little flack right around their token launch. Their CEO had a little bit of a checkered history, and they had him step down right before their token launch. Seems like things have rebounded for them, but same type of deal. If we look at their console here, they have 614 GPUs, 59 CPUs. They have 256 that are currently hired and being utilized. So that's pretty legit. One of the things that they claim to be able to do is something called clustering, where they've got software. If you have GPUs that are in different locations, they can basically combine that to get you more GPU power by combining the different GPUs that are distributed around. Again, I mentioned this, their CEO stepped down right before the token launch. So this is like a really bad look. And I think a lot of people soured on this project because of that. And they didn't really fully, actually, market conditions have sucked. So it's hard to say what that price would be if market conditions were better. But now the team that's taken over seems to be doing a really good job. This is their revenue metrics. And this is what I care about the most. But they right now, if you look at Q4, they had 3.1 million in Q4, an annualized revenue rate of $12.5 million per year. So that's pretty damn good. And you look at the growth across the board, actually. So that's what you want to see. 69 cents. So you saw this thing was up to $5.67 right after their token launch. Again, I think a lot of people freaked out because the CEO situation, but it did get back up. We are 500 million, currently sitting at 115 million. So roughly a 5x from where we are if we get back to those numbers. And let's be real, IONET, they launched a year ago. They're seeing crazy revenue growth and revenue trends. And I think this is the big difference between last market cycle and this market cycle is we saw a lot of these types of projects, launch, but they weren't getting usage. They were just kind of building out the supply side and getting the GPUs on the network. Now we're actually seeing the revenue and we're seeing the usage of the networks. And this is something I've been talking about a lot recently is like the fundamentals right now in DePIN are stronger than they've ever been. The prices are just lagging behind. Cash Network's been around for a while. I've owned it since the last market cycle. I held it through the bear market. And that was when they weren't getting usage. If you look now, same type of deal, but they've got H200s, they got H100s, A100s, and they're getting utilization. This is exactly what you want to see. Top end NVIDIA GPUs and utilization. So that means revenue, guys. That's a good deal. So a cash, there's a lot of people that last market cycle were like, yeah, I mean, a cash network, I don't know why people are investing in it. It's not getting any usage. Well, now it is. It is getting usage. And they have their blog. They're very active in here. They've got a lot of stuff going on there. It was also one of the first projects to really rebound after that huge crash we saw back in the spring following the whole tariff situation. But if we look at the price, $1.10, I think this did get up to like $7 in the past. Yeah, $7.22. Let's look at the market cap. This thing got up to 1.4 billion. We're sitting at $274 million market cap. So down, 70-80%. There's another one that I think could do really well. I believe this is built on Cosmos, actually. But a cash network's a solid project. I wonder where it's available for purchase here. It's on Coinbase. So, and KuCoin, crypto.com. So it's on the major exchanges. But I really do like a cash network. I think that this is another one that could really have a massive rebound, sitting at $1.10 right now. Aethir. You look at their dashboard, their metrics are really impressive. They say total GPUs containers 432,000. You look, they have a bunch in Singapore, a bunch in the US. They claim to have $141 million in annual recurring revenue. To me, that is absolutely bananas. Now, I've talked to some people that they're called into question a little bit on their annual recurring revenue because I don't think it's like on chain, but their market cap means 300 million. But really, if this is true, if they really are seeing that much reoccurring revenue, I would have to argue this is underpriced at 300 million. So either this figure is not accurate or the market is not adequately pricing in their revenue on this project. I don't know. I actually don't own any Aethir myself, but I bring it up because I know a lot of people are huge fans of this project and they do seem to be getting really good usage. That is the only one that I don't have ownership in. I would consider grabbing a bag, especially if we continue to see the price, drop as all of these projects are innocent bystanders really to the market conditions right now. Arweave is by far my favorite project. They're differentiated because they're doing permanent storage. If we look at some of these trends right now, look at the transaction trends, just seeing massive growth. Not to mention that Arweave's been around for like 7 years. They're tried and true. Their model is such that you pay upfront, your file stored in the blockchain forever. And they're getting massive usage, guys. Also, I think it's something like 70 to 80% of a lot of NFT collections are stored on there. A lot of blockchains store their data on Arweave. You also have AO, which is essentially a supercomputer built on top of Arweave. I have exposure to both myself. They also just had their Arweave day in Berlin. And you can see here, like, they've been around for 7 years. There's not many projects that can say that, and their fundamentals continue to get better. This is something I need to spend some time and really look into this ecosystem, because I bet there's going to be a number of projects that absolutely explode that are built on top of Arweave. In particular, I mentioned AO, but if we look at Arweave's price, another thing that I think is really solid about Arweave is that their supply is completely circulating. So it's obviously a big win there. You look at their all-time price action here, we're at $5. Let's look at market cap. It's a better comparison. Their market cap was at 200 or $2.92 billion. We're at 330 million. So call it a 9x from here if we got back to that. But again, looking at some of these prices and looking at the fundamentals of these projects, it's like everything to me, it just seems like it's on sale. I know like buying the dip has been like brutal this year, but I'm really, really trying to double down on the projects that I have high conviction for, and Arweave is definitely one of them. You look at AO, again, that's the supercomputer project that's built on top of Arweave. I want to say it's around like $15 right now. Yeah. It was up near 30 at one point. It's a newer project, but $52 million market cap. Again, I mean, I just look at these prices. I'm like, geez, I'm doing everything I can to accumulate more here. But I really, really like both projects. And I do have a couple. I have a couple of videos on Arweave here. Fractals. Right now, they're working with Xnet. They're going to be adding other projects as well. So essentially, how it works is, if you don't want to get up on a roof and install a hotspot, find an area where you have good foot traffic and do all that legwork. It's going to allow you to buy fractional ownership in different locations. So they're going to have professional deployers. So this is good for the protocol, because instead of having, your person that's deploying one that doesn't really care about the quality of the setup, they're going to have professional deployers that are able to do professional setups in areas that they can meet supply and demand, or match supply and demand. But some of these deployers are like, hey, I need to raise capital. Well, this is kind of like Dabba in a way, where you can now get access and get exposure by investing and getting fractional ownership in deployments. I think this has been needed for a while, but they're working with Xnet now. There's rumors that they're going to be working with Helium. I'm sure other projects will emerge as well. Maybe Geodnet, maybe Wingbits. We'll see. But I think this is going to be something that we see a lot of growth in. I did a lot of IoT hotspot installs across rooftops. It was a pain in the ass, frankly. At this point, I'm too busy. So I would love to get exposure to some of these projects from the mining, rather than just buying the token, because I think the ROI in that aspect can be better, especially early on in these projects. This gives you an avenue to do so and be hands off, have someone else manage it that does a professional install. So I think it's really smart. Go ahead and follow them. They're just getting things kicked off, but it's fractals.fun. And then follow Sean, Big Sean. Hivello. This one, if you have compute resources, instead of you having to go out and research the different projects and figuring out what tokens you should be mining, you go to their platform, you onboard your compute resources, and then they basically manage that for you. So they optimize your return by finding that they do the research, they find the projects where you can get the best token rewards. So pretty cool stuff there. Essentially, here's what they say. So step one, download their app, install on your desktop. You'll be up and running in 5 minutes and earn tokens from a variety of Web3 protocols. So this is their X page, Hivello official. Actually, it was on one of their spaces a few weeks ago. They've got a big following, 117,000 followers, guys. And if you look at the token price here, 598,000 market cap. I mean, we're still very early. Like, I think this is one that could do well. Aydo. Let's say you have an IoT device and you want to be able to monetize your IoT device. Well, instead of you having to go out and research all the projects, Aydo is partnering with different DePIN projects. One of them, 375 AI, for example, and they will basically allow you to monetize your IoT device. So you basically say what type of IoT device you have. They help connect you with the projects, and they help you monetize your hardware. They help make it easier to participate. And here you go, 375 AI and Aydo. So basically, they are onboarding a bunch of cameras through Aydo. so that people can monetize it. And then 375 actually wins as well because they're getting more data. So another project to keep your eyes on, and they are Aydo_AI. Wow, we covered a lot in that video, but hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to continue to add more projects to the list for future updates. And again, I do live streams most days now, so make sure to tune in if you're able to. As always, I appreciate your viewership. Signing off, this is Bradley Meyer with the DePIN Connection.